That noise you just heard was the death tone of a Centris 610 motherboard. Um, I was able to get video back. This is the same Centris 610 where I had upgraded the CPU. It's unrelated to that. The astute viewers might be able to figure out what looks wrong on this motherboard from a glance. It is covered in dust, unfortunately. I didn't super dust it off here, but let's talk about what happened. So, removing the extended video memory and one stick of RAM, disconnecting the SCSI disk, like going minimal system configuration, old school troubleshooting, boot her up, I get video back. But what is that? What is that? What is that crap? Oh no, we've had a capacitor vomit. Look at that. It is foul. We've got corrosion on pins there. So I've ordered some new capacitors in to replace this. I'm thinking that F component is just an inductor, F3. I'm going to clean this off and get it hopefully back in a state where it's not terrible. Looking over the board though, most of the capacitors look like they've got some shmoo going on there. A little bit of funk. So I'm going to hit this with some cleaner. I'll start with a isopropyl wash with 98% isopropyl, and then I'll work my way down. I'm going to remove the CMOS, the PRAM battery, and then I'll start cleaning the board thoroughly, see what all I can get off just with a wash, and then I'm going to start looking for components with damage using a microscope. So this will be video one of multiple, but I'm on this ESD bench here. I'm very fond of this. This is Centris 610, but it has a network option, which runs great with the AUI adapter. So I would really like to get this back up and running. This was my my Mac Classic and my Apple AUX, Apple Unix machine because of that 6800 processor. So I will endeavor to get it back up and running. Obviously with full loadout, not with just one stick of RAM. So it's running in this sort of sad state, but you can see how clean it should be. That the dimple was covered by plastic. So let's see if I can make it that shiny all around. I'll be back. I'm filming this because someone who's never dealt with flood-damaged electronics would probably not know this, or maybe would think it's a frightening aspect, but I'm using steaming hot water to do the initial rinse. I said initial. So what you do is you use blazing hot water, rinse off as much of the corrosion as you can get off in the first cycle. Make sure the batteries are removed from the board and everything else. So if the board is electrically neutral, like nothing's actually charged on this, there's no potential difference. You're not going to cause corrosion by doing this. There's also no passives like adjustable trimmer pots, no adjustable resistors. There's nothing on this to get damaged by water. All of these components are, well, basically waterproof when it's not energized. So doing a quick rinse like this, even the pins, as long as you don't have energy going through, is fine. What we're going to do is we're going to immediately follow up with some contact cleaner and some solvent and isopropyl, and that'll drive the rest of the water away. If you've ever used swimmer's ear, it's the same concept. You put isopropyl alcohol in your ear, it dries the water out. It's the same deal. We're doing this with a board. We're going to get this thing clean, and we're going to see how much of the corrosion we can get off. All you have to do is make sure there's no passives. Like I said, if there's any sort of variable trimmer pot that could be damaged, or like a slide, like a, I don't know, an example where I was doing the monitor the other day, the contrast adjustment knobs, those would be damaged by this process potentially, right? So you want to pay attention to what you're doing. Motherboards, easy. All right, so full disclosure, I have found a bit more corrosion than I would have liked, specifically here, here around that cap. This one leaked out its shmoo and got here and here, and then these three got here pretty bad. I haven't looked up any of the IDs on these ICs, and I have no idea what they do. But this one, with proximity to RAM, I'm guessing it does a thing. Which should explain why when I pulled down to one RAM stick, it was working. This is not... The best kind of repair you can do is one that you don't have to actually desolder anything, right? Because if you're out on a job, you're like, hey, this customer stuff is not working, they've had a cap fail, I'm not going to take... A lot of hobbyists, you know, okay, yeah, the ideal thing would be to resolder and replace this, but I don't want to risk damaging one of these ICs, right? I don't even know what this is. I haven't looked it up, but I'm assuming if I can just wipe this off and get it clean with isopropyl, right? Give it a couple rubs, and I can clear most of the corrosion off the board. It's probably fine. It will probably outlast my lifetime, even with a little bit of corrosion on the board. As long as that cap isn't going to leak anymore. It's already oxidized what's going to oxidize. It's not going to continue reacting. I mean, you get a philosophical debate there, right? But I'm not going to. This guy right here, most of the corrosion's already come off. So again, I just hit it with some isopropyl. Right, give a little bit with a wash bottle, and I'm using KEMET wipes. These are nice because they don't break up. And I can just take it and get it in there and give it a little rub. I'm going to ESD bench, right? There's no charge on anything. And then, see that shmoo that's coming off. Just going to be patient. Take your time, not in a rush. I mean, as long as the pads are still in good condition with the board, generally they are, this is all you got to do. These guys up here, so that might be more interesting. I'm going to try to clean that up. Again, I don't want to have to pull soldering iron out for anything but the caps. Minimum intrusion to the board. I don't want to risk damage to any other components that I would have trouble finding replacements for. Manually having to clean every component and wipe corrosion out of it. You sort of feel like you've been a bad archivist and you've let your books go to rot. It's about the same feeling, I imagine, as watching a library burn. Because, you know, this is a piece of history and you don't want it to be damaged. So, that's about the only one left that's pretty bad. And we'll see what we can clean up there. But if you look here, there's a little bit of shmoo still, but it's looking better. Better than it did. So, let's go down here. See if there's any. Now, if you remember this one, we've still got a join there. A couple of those pins, we've got some corrosion doing a join. That's going to take a bit more scrubbing. We've almost got that one pretty clean, though. So what we'll end up with is there'll be a low resistance bridge, or there'll be possibly a high resistance. But basically, there's an electrical bridge between those whatever that blue, you know, oxidization is, right? So right here, there's going to be a bridge between these two contacts. Okay, so we're going to try to clean that up. Right here is mostly clean. Caps are all going to get replaced. I've already ordered some new caps to replace these because they're obviously toast. That guy really cleaned up quite well. What I'm praying and hoping is that the connections underneath this... Is this through hole? It is. Yeah, it looks like it's through hole. Hold on, let's check. If it's through hole, I'm very much less concerned. Oh, thank God. Okay, yeah. So, since this is through mount, I care a little less. I can just spray a bunch of isopropyl under there and hope and pray that it's fine. But the last thing I want is I don't want any electrical junctions where they shouldn't be on the board, right? That's obvious. So we're going to go through and we're going to try to find any spots of corrosion like this and get them cleaned up. So I feel like I've been ranting for a while, but I'm a bit sad because I like this board. So, all right, we'll come back to it. When doing this, you end up making little wads and just kind of give them a good jiggle. I should have shown video earlier when I got some out that were really nasty looking, but you do it for a while and you end up getting more and more stuff out. And the biggest part of it is don't be afraid to use too much isopropyl, and don't be afraid to keep changing wipes and getting fresh wipes. We're going to be careful about components nearby, right? I'm not one to shove those capacitors off the board and break their traces, but I am using enough force to provide a little bit of abrasion. Isopropyl is pretty slick on the board, so thankfully you're not going to worry about hurting too much there. Like I said, going through here and getting this corrosion off is going along pretty well. Let's take a look at this again, all right? So you see, got most of the bridging gone, right? That's what we're really going for. It's going to have a little bit of discoloration, but the bridging is gone. We'll worry about the caps later. Here, again, bridging mostly gone, but the most improvement you're going to see is right here. I got the majority of that shmoo off, and so I'm going to sit here and I'm going to scrub some more. This is not a fast process. I'm removing corrosion. The nice thing is it wasn't my new battery. This thing hadn't leaked at all, so it's in good condition. And the original battery I still happen to have right here. Where's it at? And it surprisingly didn't leak. So credit to Apple. 1993 battery from, who's the manufacturer here?
Inorganic lithium size. Who made this? Ah, of course it's German. Yeah, it's German. That's why it lasted forever. Shout out to the awesome Germans and their good gear. So, anyhow, I'm going to continue giving this a good old scrub down and washing it. I've got some reverse osmosis water here as well, but that was for earlier in the process. Once you've got the initial wash done, you only want to be using 91% or higher isopropyl and or contact cleaner, which is usually like inheptane and a bunch of other random weird solvents. It's not mech, generally not anymore, but it's got some pretty nasty solvents, right? So my normal MO is hit the board with tap water, right, which has all kinds of funk in it. You don't want to be leaving the tap water on there. That would be very bad, so don't just hit it with tap water and leave it. Hit it with tap water, spray it with high-end solvent like contact cleaner, let it drip. Like spray the whole thing, get a good coat, and let it drip off the board. Get a good 2 waves of contact cleaner across the entire board. And then come back and do detail scrub like this with isopropyl. But if you still have corrosion, and sometimes you might, in fact on the back of the board I have some examples here. I've got this where I drove away some of the corrosion. You end up with this white. You can still use a little bit of RO water to help break this up. It seems to work better than isopropyl in some cases. And water is a solvent, so the thing is, anytime you use RO water, reverse osmosis or distilled, both work. You're doing that so it doesn't leave a bunch of mineral deposits on the board as it dries. By the way, when you go to the car wash and use spot-free rinse, surprise, surprise, that's reverse osmosis water. So use RO water where you need it if it's functioning better than isopropyl, but then go back to isopropyl and hit that same area because you want to drive away any moisture from the board as much as possible. As far as solvents go, you're going to be using on a printed circuit board. I feel isopropyl is one of the more friendly. So there were some, I'll have to find the link, but there's a nice Australian gentleman who was kind enough to find a counterpart, and I feel like that's kind of yellow. Oh, it's gross. Was nice enough to find the counterpart that you need for these. These are all like 47 picofarad, 16 volt caps, and every single one on this board is the same value, which is freaking awesome. Shout out to Apple. So I'm going to be able to just go through here basically and pop these caps off and put new ones in their place. Not thrilled that I'm having to replace the caps. I thought that I was going to get away from capacitor rot because I looked at the board and I saw all of these caps and I'm like, oh, these will last forever because they're thallium. But then I didn't pay attention to like little tiny baby electrolytics on here. And of course, capacitor's going to do what capacitor's going to do, man. They're going to rot and poop everywhere and shoot their gross funk all over your board. Yeah. So I'm removing capacitors from the board. I have my ground clip here. I am on my grounded mat, and I have my wrist strap on because I'm partial to this board, and it's also dry outside. So I want to ensure that no matter what, I'm at an equivalent potential to the board as I'm working on it. Yeah. So if you look down here, you can see where I've pulled the caps. So basically the process is I take my Heiko snips, I cut in line with the capacitor can, and I chop the capacitor off because they're trash anyway. And then if I have to, I can cut the little nub off, right? Sometimes it leaves a little bit of a nub. Cut the nub, cut it down as far as you can, and the plastic just lifts off. And I do that because I do not want to use a heat gun near these ICs. I have no idea how old these are, and again, I'm not the Dave Jones expert. I'm not the Louis Rossman. I'm not that guy, right? I'm just replacing components. I'm packing stuff down on the board. I have no knowledge other than they leaked. That's my level of skill. That's where I'm going to stay at, right? I can solder stuff. I can follow instructions. They be messed up. I can find equivalent parts on Mauser or on Digikey. So that's where we're at here, right? That's not a you're not watching the guy for expert details. Anyhow, So basically, I've got a wedge tip, and I apply a little bit of clean 6040 solder. It melts real low temp anyway. Apply a little bit, and then take some wick, and I take the wick and I kind of just use the wedge tip on my iron, and I just drag it across the board gently. I'm not trying to like scrub it, right? And I can already judge. I had a little skip with my iron apparently right there. Sorry. Anyhow, calling out my own defects. But if you look here though, they're relatively clean now. Traces are all fine. Everything's happy. Pads are still good. That one's a little more sketch, but it contacted out okay. I need to clean that some more. So I'm gonna basically work my way through. But what it looks like when you actually see one, where's one I pulled off? I haven't cleaned yet. These guys right here. So you can actually see when you've pulled the cap off. There we go. That's a good angle. Well, you pull the cap off and you pull the plate off, you end up with these two nubs. And here's my spudger. I use that to point. It's better than my finger. It's a bit more polite. So these two nubs right here stick up. So all I do is touch my wedge iron right here, and I can use my little Heiko pliers, and I can grab the nub as it's pointing up with the real fine needle nose. Or I can push with the iron on the board. I don't like doing that with the edge of the board. If I can, I'm going to try to only apply the iron exactly on the contact point, and just lift off with the Heikos and not pull the trace off. There's an art to it. You don't want to pull a bunch of upward pressure and yank the trace up, because you can certainly do that. That's my method. I'm sure there are plenty of others out there. And one of the things I do to get easy iron contact, I'll apply a little bit of fresh solder to the tip of my iron before I set it on the point. Again, this is all to not get heat on any of these chips. I'm trying to be as gentle as possible with this board, considering its age. So I've got to work through. You can definitely see where the shmoo leaked out. Just left all kinds of crud everywhere. Where's the other one? I've got one further back over here on this corner. And so you can actually see on this one, when I cut it off, this leg wasn't even really attached. Like the corrosion had gotten into the leg, and it just peeled off. Like when I lifted the plastic cap off, it just came off. Pad's still there just fine, right? So there is a risk doing that, right? Cutting the caps off is generally really easy and really safe, but if you aren't gentle, you cut in line with the solder, right? But the other thing you got to be careful about is that I push my finger on top of the cap when I cut to keep downward pressure on it. That way my pliers don't inadvertently yank the capacitor up. I'm trying to keep everything pushing down towards the board. Like even as I'm cutting, I apply a little bit of pressure down, because I don't want it to yank the capacitor off the board and pull those pads up. Another one right there, really corroded out quite bad. And again, so by doing it this way, I was able to take the caps off, and I'm just left with these dirty contacts sticking up. So that's just a matter of cleaning two solder contacts, and this is a lot easier to do for the guy who is using the cheapest Chinesium soldering set, right? I'm not, again, how often am I having to do component level repair on my boards? Not very often. I'm not that guy. So if you're at home watching this and you're somebody like me and you're like, I just want my board to work, and I'm partial to it, this is the lazy way of doing it, and it works quite well. So hopefully by the end of this video you'll see a happy Mac tone, and maybe this will be something that will encourage you to go buy a cheap soldering set and not invest tons of money. The only things I get really good are my hand tools. I do buy the name brand hand tools simply because I want them to be good, but I mean, things that get hot are things that get hot, and I don't feel like I need to spend a ton of money on that. Anyhow, that's where she's at. I'm cleaning traces and cleaning pads and trying to get the board nice and pretty. I think you can tell by the way that the isopropyl and water and everything I showed in the previous steps has got this thing looking really nice and shiny. There is a direct light overhead that is probably making it a bit harder to see. But there we go. It's a little bit of Rembrandt lighting for the for the board. But you can see it's pretty clean now, right? Looks a heck of a lot better than it did. In fact, I'll do a flyover here. All right. So you see it's a heck of a lot better than it looked. And we're going to continue cleaning. Not where I want it yet, since I've broken the lid now. The seal's been broken, so I've got to work at it until I'm happy. All right, see y'all later. Okay, there we are, fully recapped. Got some more over here, chilling down there, but fully recapped now. So let's moment of truth. I got the SCSI SD plug back up. I did find that one of my RAM sticks was bad. So there's a MOSFET or something gone. Ooh, not that one.
right there. See that? So that's a thing. So I'll be taking that apart later and figure out what happened there. But thankfully I've got extra memory. Just a little bit more RAM, so I'm not too worried about that right now. So let's go ahead and just trash out the way here and power this thing up. Alright. Come on. This is always the thing with waiting. So with this thing fully packed with 68 meg of memory and the 2 videos, like, you gotta wait. It's still booting. It's still thinking. Hear a little tick from the speaker. Come on. Come on. I want that light to turn green on the bottom of the monitor. Come on. Go. Go! Yes! Well, you can see our access light on our SCSI SD going crazy here. So, this is great. This is awesome. Perfect. There we go. Back up and running OS 9. I don't think I could ask for more. Let it boot all the way up since you guys are sitting here and you've made it all the way to this part of the video. So, all in all, had to recap this. And I got to thank an Australian YouTuber, and I cannot remember his name. I'll throw a link on the video, but there's an Australian YouTuber who had a recapping video where he showed, of course, he had much better gear than I do. I have a soldering iron. He had like a hot work reflow station and everything. He was doing it the proper way, but I used a soldering iron with some thin solder, 60-40 solder, and I made it work. You know, looked clean. You guys saw it. But it's up and running now. It's much happier. The death chime is gone. So getting it down to, you know, 1 stick of bad memory and then some electrolytic caps that had failed, and cleaning the shmoo off the board and getting that funk cleaned up. So it's pretty darned awesome. Let this thing finish coming up here. Let's kind of zoom back a bit. You can see the flashing light as it's thinking there. SCSI SD is a little slower. You know, with this like SCSI 1 bus, you probably won't notice, but on my Silicon Graphics machine, I can definitely tell the SCSI SD device is not as fast as a physical hardware, especially when I had a 10,000 RPM drive in there. But I'll tell you what, that is a heck of a lot easier on the power supply than a spinning disk. Having a solid state draw there is going to be a lot easier than having to keep a motor spinning up, drawing all that current. So hoping our power supplies will have a little bit more gentle loading with this setup. Hopefully make things last a little longer. Alright, so you see she's almost fully loaded here. I'm going to give it just a second. I have a couple startup applications running, and this is a 68K processor. I don't have the Apple Unix running on this one right now, so you're just seeing a straight OS 9 install, but she's still clicking away here. I see the light flashing. So it's still... It's one thing about this chassis. It doesn't have a... there's not a light pipe on the front of the case, and there's no hard drive indicator LED. You have a power LED. Yeah. But it actually is accessible. You just are confused. So, all right. Still starting up here. And what's funny, by the way, if you have one of these, the heat gets a little warm, but it's not ever hot. The 68K chip is like cool to the touch. I mean, this is a little warm. It's got a little bit of heat. It's just not that hot, though. So, once she's booted up, we'll go over here and click on Apple menu, about this computer. There we go. Check it out. 68 meg of memory. macOS 8.1. So, hope you guys enjoyed. I know it was a lengthy video. It took a while. This is days after. I don't have surface mount capacitors just sitting on the shelf. Too worried about it. I'm going to link the video where that nice, awesome Australian dude shows himself recapping one of these Centris 610s. There are 14 capacitors on the board. In fact, his website's nice enough to provide the locations. Like I said, I'm going to link that in the description of the video with kudos to that guy for his awesome help. And maybe I can find a way to link this as like a video reply to him, because I really do appreciate somebody putting that out there for the community, because we now have another functional Centris 610 because somebody took the effort to document that. I didn't have to go and like figure out what capacitor was going to fit on these boards, which is would have sucked. Anyhow, yeah, I'll put that up. Hope you guys enjoyed.